morning and welcome to our Sunday talk. The United Lodge of Theosophists is guided by its declaration, which states the following. The policy of this lodge is independent devotion to the cause of Theosophy, without professing attachment to any theosophical organization. It is loyal to the great founders of the Theosophical movement, but does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view are too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of Theosophy, and the exemplification and practice of those principles through a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. It holds that the unassailable basis for union among Theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching, and therefore has neither constitution, bylaws, nor officers, the sole bond between its associates being that basis. And it aims to disseminate this idea among Theosophists in the furtherance of unity. It regards as Theosophists all who are engaged in the true service of humanity, without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization. And it welcomes to its association all those who are in accord with its declared purposes and who desire to fit themselves, by study and otherwise, to be the better able to help and teach others. The true Theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. Today's reading comes from the voice of the silence. Calm and unmoved, the pilgrim glideth up the stream that to nirvana leads. He knoweth that the more his feet will bleed, the whiter will himself be washed. He knoweth well that after 7 short and fleeting births, nirvana will be his. Such is the dhyana path, the haven of the yogi, the blessed goal that Srotapatis crave. Not so when he hath crossed and won the Arya-hata path. There, klesha is destroyed forever, tanha's roots torn out. But stay, disciple, yet one word. Canst thou destroy divine compassion? Compassion is no attribute. It is the law of laws, eternal harmony, Alaya's self, a shoreless universal essence, the light of everlasting right, and fitness of all things, the law of love eternal. The more thou dost become at one with it, thy being melted in its being, the more thy soul unites with that which is, the more thou will become compassion absolute. Such is the Arya path, path of the Buddhas of perfection. As you see on the title, today's talk is on the sevenfold division. Number 7, the fundamental figure among all other figures in every national religious system, from cosmogony down to man, must have its raison d'etre. It is found among the ancient Americans as prominently as among the archaic Aryans and Egyptians. 7 seems to have been the sacred number par excellence among all civilized nations of antiquity. Why? Each separate people has given a different explanation according to the peculiar tenets of their exoteric religion. That it was the number of numbers for those initiated into the sacred mysteries, there can be no doubt. Pythagoras calls it the vehicle of life, containing body and soul, since it's formed of a quaternary, that is wisdom and intellect, and of a trinity, or action and matter. And who, acquainted with the Puranas, the Book of the Dead, the Zendavesta, the Assyrian tiles, and finally the Bible, and who has observed the constant occurrence of the number 7 in these records of people living from the remotest times unconnected and so far apart, can regard this as a coincidence. From the 7 rishis who were saved with Vaivasvata Manu down to Noah's Ark, into which beasts, fowls, and living creatures were taken by 7s. Thus we see the figures 1, 3, 5, 7 as perfect, because thoroughly mystic. Numbers playing a prominent part in every cosmogony and evolution of living beings. In China, 1, 3, 5, 7 are called celestial numbers in the canonical Book of Changes, or I Ching. The explanation of it becomes evident when one examines the ancient symbols. All these are based upon and start from the figures given from the archaic manuscript in the poem of the Secret Doctrine, Volume 1. This is the symbol of evolution and fall into generation or matter, and it is reflected in the old Mexican sculptures or paintings, as it is in the Kabbalistic Sephirot and the Egyptian Tao. Examine the Mexican manuscripts and you will find it in a tree whose trunk is covered with 10 fruits, ready to be plucked by a male and female, one on each side of it, while from the top of the trunk 2 branches shoot horizontally to the right and left, thus forming a perfect Tao. The ends of the 2 branches, moreover, each bearing a triple bunch with a bird, the bird of immortality, Atman, or the divine spirit, sitting between the 2 and thus making the 7th. This represents the same idea as the sephirotal tree, 10 in all, yet when separated from its upper triad, leaving 7. These are the celestial fruits, the 10. Or 10. Born out of the 2 invisible and male and female seeds, making up the 12, or the dodecahedron of the universe. The mystic system contains the central point. The 3, or the 5, and the 7, or again, the triangle in the square and the synthesizing point in the interlaced double triangles. This for the world of archetypes. The phenomenal world receives its culmination and the reflex of all in man. Therefore, he is the mystic square in his metaphysical aspect, the tetractys, and becomes the cube on the creative plane. His symbol is the cube unfolded, and 6 becoming 7, or the 3 crossways, the female, and 4 vertically. And this is man, the culmination of the deity on earth. whose body is the cross of flesh, on, through, and in which he is ever crucifying and putting to death the divine Logos, or his higher self. The universe, says every philosophy and cosmogony, hath a ruler, rulers collectively, set over it, which is called the Word, Logos. The fabricating spirit is the queen, which two are the first power after the one. These are the spirit and nature, which two form our illusory universe. The two inseparables remain in the universe of ideas so long as it lasts, and then merge back into Parabrahma, the one ever changeless. The spirit, whose essence is eternal, one and self-existent, emanates a pure ethereal light. A dual light not perceptible to the elementary senses. In the Kabbalah, which explains the secret meaning of Genesis, this light is the dual man, or the androgen, rather the sexless angels, whose generic name is Adam Kadmon. It is they who complete man, whose ethereal form is emanated by other divine but far lower beings, who solidify the body with clay, or the dust of the ground. An allegory indeed, but as scientific as any Darwinian evolution, and more true. Spirit is universal, indivisible, and common to all. In other words, there are not many spirits, one for each man, but solely one spirit, which shines upon all men alike, finding as many souls, roughly speaking, as there are beings in the world. In man, the spirit has a more complete instrument or assemblage of tools with which to work. The spiritual identity is the basis of the philosophy. Upon it, the whole structure rests. To individualize spirit, assigning to each human being his own spirit, particular to him and separate from the spirit of any other man, is to throw to the ground the whole Theosophic philosophy, will nullify its ethics and defeat its object. Starting then with Atma, spirit, as including the whole, being its basis and support, we find the Hindu offering the theory of sheaths or covers of the soul or inner man. These sheaths are necessary the moment evolution begins and visible objects appear, so that the aim of the soul may be attained in conjunction with nature. In this way, through a process which would be out of place here, a classification is arrived at, by means of which the phenomena of life and consciousness may be explained. The 6 vehicles used by the spirit and by means of which the ego gains experience are as follows. These are all Sanskrit terms. First, we have Rupa, or Stula Sharira. The exoteric meaning of this is physical body. This is the vehicle of all the other principles during life. Sula Sharira is described as being the child of Linga Sharira, its mother, by conception of Prana, its father. Then we have Prana. This is the life or vital principle. This principle is only necessary to the physical body, astral body, Kamarupa, and the functions of the lower manas, which embrace all those limited to the physical brain. Then we have Linga Sharira. The exoteric meaning of this is the astral body. This is also called the double or the phantom body. Specifically, it is the subtle, unseen double of the dense physical body. It is the form, mold, and blueprint upon and around which the dense physical body is built. It comes into existence before the physical body, and it only fully fades out and dies when the very last remaining particle of the deceased physical disintegrates. Then we have Kamarupa. This is the seat of animal desires and passions. Kamarupa is the center of the animal man, where lies the line of demarcation which separates the mortal man from the immortal entity. These four comprise the lower quaternary. If we now review the upper imperishable triad, we have the following Sanskrit terms. First, we start with manas. In its exoteric meaning, this stands for mind or intelligence. It has a dual nature, that of higher manas and lower manas. When the mind and consciousness are lifted, raised, and elevated towards higher things, spiritual things, abstract things, intellectual things, things of goodness, truth, purity, love, compassion, and beauty, it is then functioning as the higher manas and rising ever closer towards the divine shining light of Buddhi, the spiritual soul. When the mind and consciousness are instead allowed to sink downwards towards the lower, separative, selfish, and sensual things of life, it is lower manas, attaching itself to the principle of Kama, the animal soul. The future state and the karmic destiny of man depend on whether manas gravitates more downward to Kamarupa or upwards to Buddhi, the spiritual ego. So we said about the upper imperishable triad. First we have manas, which is the mind principle. And we said there is a higher and a lower manas. Then we have Buddhi, which is the spiritual soul. It is the vehicle of pure universal spirit. Atma is spirit. It is one with the Absolute as its radiation. This is in accordance with the fundamental teaching of Hinduism that our self, the Atman, is the supreme self, Brahman. Atman literally means self. It is the only one of our principles to which the unqualified term, the self, may be applied. Thus, we can say that man is a composite being, but in his real nature is a unity, or immortal being, comprising a trinity of spirit, discernment, and mind, which requires 4 lower mortal instruments, or vehicles through which to work in matter, and obtain experience from nature. This trinity is called Atma, Buddhi, Manas. Atma is spirit, Buddhi is the highest power of intellection, that which discerns and judges, and Manas is mind. This threefold collection is the real man, and beyond doubt, the doctrine is the origin of the theological one of the Trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. The 4 lower material constituents are transitory and subject to disintegration in themselves, as well as to separation from each other. When the hour arrives for their separation to begin, the combination can no longer be kept up. The physical body dies, the atoms of which each of the 4 is composed begin to separate from each other, and the whole collection, being disjointed, is no longer fit for one as an instrument for the real man. This is what's called death among us mortals. But it is not death for the real man, because he is deathless, persistent, immortal. He's therefore called the triad, or indestructible trinity, while they're known as the quaternary, or mortal 4. This quaternary, or lower man, is a product of cosmic or physical laws and substance. It has been evolved during a lapse of ages like any other physical thing from cosmic substance, and is therefore subject to physical, physiological, and psychical laws, which govern the race of man as a whole. Any one collection in the form of man made up of these constituents is therefore limited in duration by the laws of the evolutionary period in which it exists. As we said, the real man is the trinity of Atma, Buddhi, Manas, or spirit and mind. And he uses certain agents and instruments to get in touch with nature in order to know himself. These instruments and agents are found in the lower 4, each principle in which category is of itself an instrument for the particular experience belonging to its own field, the body being the lowest, least important, and most transitory of the whole series. For when we arrive at the body on the way down from the higher mind, it can be shown that all of its organs are in themselves senseless and useless when deprived of the man within. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smelling do not pertain to the body, but to the second unseen physical man. The real organs for the exercise of those powers being in the astral body, and those in the physical body being but the mechanical outer instruments for making the coordination between nature and the real organs inside. All these sheets produce other smaller sheets, or 6 attributes or qualities each, the 7th being always the root sheath, and the Atman or spirit passing through all these subtle ethereal bodies like a thread is called thread soul or Sutratman. The esoteric doctrine may well be called in its turn the thread doctrine. Since, like Sutratman or Pranatman, it passes through and strings together all the ancient philosophical religious systems, and what is more, reconciles and explains them. For though seeming so unlike externally, they have but one foundation, and of that the extent, depth, breadth, and nature are known to those who have become, like the wise men of the East, adepts in occult science. This concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for attending.